strokes here because I don't know. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, introduce yourself.
All right. Shalom, everybody. My name is Deutsch. I'm originally from a place called Teaneck, New Jersey. New Jersey was so amazing that I left. And I made the move to the Holy Land. And there I was, having made the move to the Holy Land. And I'm wandering around the streets of the old city of Jerusalem. And I bump into a few people I know from Toronto, Canada. And me and them get to talking. And with them, there was this other young lady. Me and her get to talking. And what do you know, to make a short story shorter, me and this gal end up getting hitched. And so it just goes to show you that some people go to the old city of Jerusalem for God, other people for the ladies. And since then, thank God, we've been blessed to live in a bunch of locations in Israel. We lived a couple of years in an area called Gush Etzion. We lived a couple of years in Beersheba, across the street from Ben Gurion University, where we were involved with Jewish outreach on the campus there. And now, thank God, we've been blessed actually to live right back in the old city of Jerusalem for the last 16, 17 years, living in a place overlooking the spot that we met. This is a nice little tale. But that is not, hopefully that is not the only reason I'm here talking to you today. What brings me here to talk to you today is that when I was growing up, and maybe some of you all can relate to this, when I was growing up, anything ever heard about Judaism was a lot about the what's of Judaism and the hows of Judaism, what to do, how to do it. But like, why on earth should I be involved in this? Why on earth should I care? Why on earth should this Jewish stuff make a difference in my life? Some of those whys were always passed over. And so growing up, this bothered me. And so I wanted to check some of these questions out for myself, some of these whys out for myself. So I went to Israel and I started searching things out. This started out as a philosophical pursuit. Why should I believe this? Why should I believe that? There's the God who gave the Torah to the Jewish people. Why should I believe the oral tradition is legit and relevant? And so I started searching out people, programs, places that would deal with these questions, and there weren't so many, but Baruch Hashem, I found my way to hopefully what I think is the right people, for me at least. And so as I started to get actually some rational basis for all this Jewish stuff, so then my questions evolved from the philosophical to the more spiritual. Like, okay, why do we do this particular thing in this particular way? What difference does it really make? And so that led me to the teachings of Chassidut, of Kabbalah. And basically, this is what I'm blessed to be involved with, is giving over a little bit of the whys of Judaism from a philosophical perspective, as well as a spiritual perspective as well. And so that's my story. That's where I'm coming from. And today, of course, we thought that it would be relevant to speak about, the issues of the time, but to look at it from perspective of our avodah. What's our avodah in this moment, right? And the truth is, me living in Israel and just having, people who were connected with me, and so people would ask me, especially people from America, ask me like, okay, I'm praying, okay, I'm davening. What else should I do? What else can I be doing? What else should I be doing, right? And so of course there's a bunch of different different chesed and things that people are doing, and it's awesome. And you see these videos of people loading up the duffel bags on the planes, and Baruch Hashem, it's awesome. But people are asking, okay, I'm davening, whatever. What should I be doing? What else should I be doing? And so I want to share with you what my personal answer is to people, and just based on I guess what came to me. And I also found out since then that other people, I'm not alone. I'm not alone in this. Okay, and that is that when we first heard about what happened, right? I was in Jerusalem. I was in Jerusalem, and so when we first heard what happened, we knew obviously certain information was trickling in, that this was something that was more than the usual things that we hear about. So right after Matzei Yom Tov, Matzei Simchat Torah, so when I came home, first thing I asked my wife was, did you hear from our daughter? Because our daughter was actually in Ofakim in the south. Baruch Hashem, she was okay. But then the next question was, like what happened. And so then when we heard what happened, so my first, or whatever little bit we heard at that time, my first gut response was, because this was not normal, right? This is beyond the whole thing is very biblical. I'm not going to go into all of it now, but the first thing that struck me was the issue of Jewish unity, right? That if you know the sources in Judaism, if you know the sources in Tanakh, and you know the Jewish history, so the Jewish history of issues with Jewish unity, etc., and then you also see what's been going on in the land of Israel, or in the state of Israel over the last year. It's very difficult not to connect those dots, right? There's no shortage of sources and history putting forth the idea that Jewish unity is a path to divine protection, right? And so I think that's a place where it's worthwhile to go, where it's worthwhile to look. One of the classic sources that comes to mind is in Medrash Tanchuma in Parshat Chukat, where it says that Shaul HaMelech, when he was the king of the Jewish people, during that generation, the people were righteous. The people were very refined, Jewishly, right? However, when they went to war, they fell. And a different generation, the generation of the king of Achav, during his time, the people, him as well as the people, were very not righteous, right? All sorts of idolatry and immorality going on. And yet, when they went to war, they were victorious in war. And so the Medrash asks, why is this? And so the answer that's given is because, yes, during the times of Shaul HaMelech, they were very righteous. However, when it came to this issue of treating one another with respect and dignity or whatever, during that, they weren't good about that. They didn't treat each other with respect. There was, I guess, a little bit of disdain or looking down, or they would talk slander. They would talk lashon hara behind one another's back. And so, because of this is what the Medrash teaches. That this is why ultimately they fell in war, as opposed to the times of Achav. Achav, yes, there was all sorts of idolatry and morality during that time. However, there was all sorts of idolatry and immorality during that time of Achav. But when it came to this issue of treating one another with respect and dignity, this they did. When one person turned around, the other person wouldn't then go talk trash about them. Right? They actually liked each other. They actually treated each other with respect. There was dignity, there was respect, there was Jewish unity, there was unity. And so in the merit of this, even though that generation was considered to be idolatrous, immoral, negative, sinful, nevertheless, they had this level of divine protection that surrounded them, right? And so what that means is, like the Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev says, that Jewish unity is a way to hack the system. That even if the people aren't being so righteous, if you have Jewish unity, then the Jewish people are going to be protected. And this is where else do we see this? The Maharal of Prague, one of the great Kabbalists, explains that if you look at the word for shalom, if you look at the word for peace, the root letters, shin, lamed, mem, so he says this like this. He says that the letter shin, you see the letter shin has two legs going, it has three legs going up. The two extremes are the concept of the extremes of society, right? The extreme opinions, the extremes of society. And then you have the middle leg, which necessarily brings together those other three and brings them together as one. And so the shin represents the concept of Jewish unity. When the Jewish people are like the shin, they have Jewish unity, so then they're going to be like the lamed, right? Which is lamed is the tallest of all the letters, the highest of all the letters. The highest of all the letters. They're gonna, when they're at a high place before Hashem. So when the Jewish people are unified and that they're at a high place before Hashem, like the lamed, so then they're gonna come to like the mem sofit. The mem sofit, which is like a box, which is sealed, which is secure, that is unpenetratable. The Jewish people, when they're unified, like the shin, and then they're at a high place before Hashem, like the lamed, then they will be like the mem sofit. They will be protected. There'll be a sealing. They will not be able to be infiltrated by their enemies. And so this is the idea. And so that's why I think that this is the calling of the time. right? I think that this is the calling of the time, especially, again, if we look at where society was, certainly in Israel, where the Israeli society was, where Jewish society was. Then we have something as seemingly incomprehensible as this. Incomprehensible, I say, because, supposedly we have a strong army, we have all sorts of info, etc. How did something like this happen? We're not just talking about 10 people jumping over a fence here, right? It was obviously much, much more than that. And so something that seemingly is beyond the natural. And of course, later on, maybe they'll pin it on something. This guy didn't listen to this notification or whatever, and people ignored warnings. Whatever it is that they say at the end of the day, it's not going to do justice to to really explain what happened. That there was basically a whole army here that was able to come in. So the Jewish idea, of course, is that when we have external problems, we look for an internal solution, right? External problems don't happen on their own. Yes, we believe in something called hishtadlut, and taking care of each other, and taking care of making efforts and making physical efforts in this world. And so, yeah, okay, we believe go ahead, vote, do the politics, do all that stuff. But in the end of the day, God does results. And so, if we want to look internally when there's an external problem, say, okay, where are we internally off, and where do we need to make a change? So I personally believe that Jewish unity is an issue that we need to be awake to, and I'm not alone. That was my first gut response. And then afterwards, I heard certain different rabbis who I respect, who came out with certain things. This is what they said as well. And so I think it's worthwhile to focus in on that. And so when people now ask me, like I was mentioning before, that people ask me from America and say, okay, look, I'm praying. Awesome, what else should I do? So my answer is the same to them, which is find a way to foster Jewish unity. And so people ask, okay, well, hold on a second. What does it mean to foster Jewish unity? I mean, after all, what are we saying here? Are we saying that, like, okay, I have one opinion, another person has another opinion. So in order, for the sake of Jewish unity, should I just drop my opinion and just do whatever they say, even though I don't agree with what they're saying, and even though the Torah maybe doesn't agree with what they're saying? And so the answer to that is no, that's not unity. Right? When we just drop what we believe, or we drop what's true in order to appease people who disagree, that's not called unity, that's sameness. There's a difference, right? Matter of fact, also, Maharal of Prague says that there's no peace without truth. What does that mean? If you're letting go of the truth for the sake of not having a difference of opinion with someone else, that's not called peace. Peace means that you're able to be two people who are maybe different, or able to come together despite the fact that they're different. If you just drop your differences, so that's not peace. That's you losing yourself for the sake of not having a difference of opinion. That's not called unity. That's not called peace, right? So what would peace look like? Or what would unity look like? It would look like this. It would look like we are brothers before we even have an opinion, before we even have anything to say, right? Think about that in terms of a relationship, right? Think about that in terms of, if you're in a spouse relationship, for example, is the easiest probably example, right? That if we are one before we even talk about whatever the issue is, but we feel that oneness, so then, like, even if we're going to have a difference of opinion, our oneness comes before whatever the conversation is that we're about to have. So if I'm having a dispute, if I'm having an argument or disagreement with you, right? If it's coming from a place of, like, with an arm around over your shoulder, and then we're having a communication like this, so then it's coming, I'm starting off in a place of we are one. I'm starting off from a place of love and extending of myself from that place, right? Which is very, very different than coming from a place of, disdain, contempt, frustration, And so often we're in situations with people, we just kind of like want to shake them, like, what's wrong with you? But the truth is, like, don't you see, why can't you realize that, if you actually really took a step back and went into that person, in their experiences, in their influences, etc., and you went all the way back, you'd actually understand the answer to those questions. You'd actually understand, no, it makes sense that they actually believe that, right? And so if we can come from that place of empathy and of love and understanding and oneness before any conversation comes out, that would be what unity looks like. It doesn't mean that we don't have differences of opinion. It doesn't mean there aren't going to be disputes. But first and foremost, we are brothers, we are family, we are one, right? And lo and behold, I don't know how many people have been to Israel since this whole thing happened. I might be the only one, I don't know. But like you saw overnight, the whole country changed. Just like that. Everything changed. There's no, I mean, you might see a few commenters here and there on different social media, but the facts on the ground are not like that at all. All of a sudden, everything changed in an instant. And so we're very capable of it. We're very capable of it. And so we should talk a little bit of what Jewish unity looks like, right? And so we just shared something, and I'll add to it. Within the context of Ian ben Halacha, within the context of Jewish law, you find that there needs to be a conversation of Jewish unity as well. For example, right, we find that the idea that Mashiach needs to come from a place of Jewish unity, we find this all the way back when Yaakov is talking to his sons. When Yaakov is on his deathbed and he tells his sons, gather together and gather around, and I will share with you what's going to be in the end of days. Right? So the Shlach Kadosh, one of the great Kabbalists, he says, look, you see already over here, you see that first there needs to be a gathering together in order to get to the end of days. In order to get to that time of Mashiach, there needs to be a gathering together. It needs to be that everyone's together. It needs to be a concept of Jewish unity, of brotherhood, of sisterhood, right? And fast forward, when the Jewish people leave Egypt as well, we find this idea of Jewish unity. When the Jewish people leave, we know that the splitting of the sea happens, but we're familiar perhaps with the Midrash, which teaches that when the sea split, it didn't just split down the middle like they show in the movies, but it split with 12 splits. And between each path in the water, there was walls of water with windows in the walls of water. This way, you'd be able to, each tribe would walk down a path, but then there'd also be windows there. And you could see, oh, there's another tribe that's also going to this same purpose, the same destiny, but has a different path in getting there, right? And so there's an aspect, the concept is to recognize that this is how it's supposed to be in Judaism. People think that like, okay, listen, in the end of, but finally Mashiach comes, they'll build the Beis HaMikdash and then there'll be no machloket. I'm not so sure. Not so sure. This is maybe the way it's supposed to be. That maybe there's supposed to be different angles on the one truth of Judaism, right? Matter of fact, the Arizal teaches that machloket, the word machloket in Hebrew is rooted, is the same letters as the words meit chelek, that the portions die out. That when we have a holistic picture of Judaism, when we have oneness, when we have this concept, we're able to take a step back and see that really, like we say, like it says in the Midrash, Shivim panim l'Torah, there are 70 faces to Torah. That means there are 70 correct ways that the Torah shows itself to us and that we're able to receive the Torah, right? Or like it says in the Zohar that when God gave the Torah to the Jewish people, it's like he gave 600,000 Torahs because there were 600,000 mitzvot, there were 600,000 correct ways to see the Torah, right? And so we just say, what's machloket? Like the parts die out. But when we have this holistic picture of Torah, it's not two things that are separate, that are having an argument with each other. We have two different opinions, but they're two windows into angles into that one holistic truth called the Torah, right? When we have this perspective, we can understand that like I can have an opinion and you can have an opinion and it can both be within a kosher perspective in Judaism, right? And so the Jewish people move on. After they get out of Egypt and they go to, of course, Har Sinai, and we see by Mount Sinai, we see when the Jewish people are having this mindset, they're referred to as one body, right? It says that the Jewish people encamped across from Mount Sinai, and it says it with this. First it says Vayichanu, it says that they encamped, but then right afterwards it says Vayichan Sham Neged Ahar, that he encamped across from the mountain, and it says he as one person. And we know famously the Midrash says that the Jewish people are like one person with one heart. You might be familiar with that source, but the next source, I don't know if you're familiar with, the next one I'm going to share with you, which is that the Zohar, I think it's the Zohar, I saw it in the book from Rabbi Chaim Vital, the student of the Arizal, but I'm pretty sure it's a quote from the Zohar, where he brings the whole thing, which talks about, which goes into detail about this idea of like one person, one heart. He says basically it's like this. It's like he says there are different kinds of souls. The different kind of souls. He says there are head souls, there are heart souls, there are mouth souls, there are arm souls, there are leg souls. And each one of us is a different part of the, so to speak, body to make up all the souls, right? What does a body do? A body is supposed to bring, you have the source of that body, which is the soul, and then body lives out whatever it's supposed to do, right? So similarly, each soul is like that for Hashem, right? That would make Hashem the person, the soul, so to speak, and all the souls is the body of Hashem, if that makes sense. And so what does it mean to say? It means to say that each one of us are going to be a different kind of soul, and that means to say that different aspects of the Torah are going to appeal to us more than other aspects of the Torah. There are going to be certain things that you can do in Judaism and Torah and mitzvot that you're going to feel alive to, that you're going to feel, this is when I'm really doing my Judaism. This is when I'm really doing my Torah. This is really when I'm alive. This is really when I'm doing my relationship with Hashem. And there are going to be other things which just like, okay, it's cool, I can do it. Or maybe I have a particular struggle with certain things, but not necessarily am I going to feel like this is my relationship with Hashem. This is when I'm really on. But that's okay, and that's okay. And that's okay, the point is. The point is different people are going to feel that about different things, right? So like, for example, the head soul might feel that about Torah, about learning Torah. The mouth soul or the heart soul might feel that about tefillah, about praying to God, right? I might, okay, listen, I learn my Torah every day. I learn a little bit in the morning, a little bit in the evening. But when I really feel like, when I'm praying, when I'm in communication with Hashem, when I'm talking to God, that's when I really feel like my relationship with Hashem is happening. And they're going to have other people who, okay, I learn a little bit every day, I pray a few times a day, talk to Hashem. But I really feel alive in doing my Jewish thing when I'm involved in some kind of charity work, right? Hand souls. Someone's going to put the bill for all these people, right? Right? So, and I give you an example, by the way. I give you an example of this. I'll give you one example. There's a story in the Gemara, in the Talmud, of Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and Rabbi Chanina, okay? And it says that Rabbi Chanina would go to learn Torah by Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, let's just get it straight here. So Rabbi Yochanan is the teacher, Rabbi Chanina is the student. You with me? Right? And so here's the story. The story is that one time, Rabbi Yochanan's son, Rabbi Yochanan, the teacher, his son became sick. And if the Talmud says that his son became sick, it doesn't just mean he had a cold, right? It means the son was on his deathbed, basically. And Rabbi Yochanan, the teacher, turns to Rabbi Chanina, the student, and says, Rabbi Chanina, pray for my son that he should live. And so it says Rabbi Chanina got into a kind of like this fetus position. It's like a way of praying, going back to your source, going back to your root. And he prayed, and the son got better. The son of Rabbi Yochanan got healed. And afterwards, Rabbi Yochanan said, if I had, put myself in a fetus position and prayed all day, I wouldn't have been listened to upstairs. So now here's the question, obvious question. Rabbi Yochanan's the teacher. Rabbi Chanina is the student. We assume that Rabbi Yochanan's like higher up, right? He's like holier. He's the teacher. Like Rabbi Chanina was able to pray and get answered. So certainly Rabbi Yochanan would have been able to, right? I guess maybe not. And so perhaps there's different answers to this question. The answer that I'm going to share with you is based on what we're saying here today. Very simple. Rabbi Yochanan maybe was more of a head soul. And so he was more locked in and hooked in when it came to the concept of Torah learning. But maybe Rabbi Chanina was a mouth soul or a heart soul. And so when it came to prayer, that was his thing, right? And so when it came to prayer, Rabbi Yochanan turns to Rabbi Chanina and asks him to pray for his kid, right? And the truth is, we have this in the Jewish world today, right? You have certain people who are more, if you have a halachic question, a question in Jewish law, or there's something confusing or not clear in Jewish law, so you go to a posek, right? You go to maybe a Rabbi Yashav or Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, right? Now listen, don't get me wrong. If you want to get a blessing from them, that would probably be a good thing too. But if you want a blessing, usually who are you going to? If you want someone to pray for you, who are you turning to? More of a Lubavitcher Rabbi or a Baba Sali, right? And again, I'm sure they're big Talmidei Chachamim, but the point is that we have different nuances. We see that people have, I don't know if you want to call it their strengths or just different different strokes for different folks, different roles for different souls. And people have their thing, and that's okay. That's cool. That's the way it's supposed to be. And there's a beautiful tapestry that comes about in Judaism. We're able to be like that, right? And the point is to be strong in who we are, and also understand that that thing that we're passionate about, that we feel like we're connecting with Hashem in that way. So to be able to be very, very clear that other people have that same feeling about something else, right? And to be able to be happy with that and see that as complementary as opposed to a challenge, right? And so this is within everything we're sharing here. Is what I'm sharing with you is within the context of Torah, etc. But even beyond that, there's this aspect of we are a nation, we are one, we are brothers and sisters before we even open our mouths. And so also a cool, interesting source in the Talmud teaches that in the end of days, there's going to be the circle dance in the sky, what I like to call the circle dance in the sky, which is I don't know if it's really in the sky or if it'll really be a circle dance, but the source seems to teach that in the future times will be like there'll be all the tzaddikim, all the righteous people will be surrounding, will be like in a circle around Hashem, so to speak, and they'll be able to point and say, Zeh Hashem kivino lo. This is the God that I have hoped for. And there's an idea and that means to say, when you're able to point, right, when it says Zeh in the Talmud, in the Torah, in Tanakh, in the Jewish Bible, when it says Zeh, it means that it's something that you're able to see. It's something tangible. It's something right in front of your face. And so it means to say that each person is going to have their own unique vantage point, right? Because if you're in a circle, you see from one angle, someone else sees from another angle. It means to say each tzaddik, each person is going to have their own unique relationship with Hashem. And there's an idea, though, that there's going to be a holy jealousy among those tzaddikim. Those tzaddikim are going to be jealous because they're going to give, hold on a second. There's a way to relate to Hashem that guy has and I don't have. There's a way to relate to Hashem that I don't have. I want that way to relate to Hashem. So there's going to be a burning fire of jealousy in a holy way. But what's going to be the solution to that? The answer is that we're all in a circle here, right? What happens in a circle? Move along. What's the idea? The idea is if we have Jewish unity through the Jewish unity that we will have, Bezrat Hashem, during that time. So then, yes, I'm going to be very strong and have my unique relationship with Hashem and my unique window into Hashem, and you're going to have your unique window into Hashem. But through Jewish unity, I'm going to be able to see through your eyes, and you're going to be able to see through my eyes. I'm going to be able to access your window into Hashem, and you're going to be able to access my window into Hashem. Right? And this is something that we see from the Jewish sources. This is something that is so needed and so necessary, because we need to have But to understand that Jewish unity is a massive, massive key, and also a big factor and a big way to help us with that, for those who are a little bit more judgy and shouldy, right? Is that it's so easy to be able to just call everyone Tinek Shanishba nowadays, and then okay, they're off the hook, so we can just leave it, right? That's for those who know what I'm talking about, perfect. So this is the idea. This is the idea that I personally think that really one of the main things that we need to be focused on is to revamp our way of looking at people and our feeling of oneness and nationhood and family with our fellow. Questions, thoughts, ideas, anything that anybody wants to say or share? Yes, Rabbi. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that the shift was that beforehand, for a while, at least in the country, there was a lot of, we know that there was a lot of protests, and there was the way people would be speaking about one another. I'd rather not say about it. Let's just say that. Okay. After that, you don't hear a word of any of that. Everyone's brothers. Everyone loves each other. Everyone's being inspired. Everyone's helping one another. People are getting outside of their, boxes and all of that. And again, it doesn't mean we drop one iota of Torah and mitzvot. God forbid. That's not what. You see, you don't have to. Right? Not to mention also, we'll add also, I want to keep this focus on Jewish unity, but I'll also add that there's definitely a resurgence of connection to Jewish identity and doing mitzvot and Torah, whatever. I saw one clip of a guy who came on to one of the news stations in Israel. I guess he was some kind of general or something in the army or whatever. Certainly didn't look like he was observant, right? Okay. And he said, I don't think that there's one soldier going into Gaza without tzitzis on his body and tehillim in his pockets. That's what he said on national television. But anyway, that's not what it's about. I'm talking about Jewish unity with the tehillim, with the tzitzis over that, right? And so yeah, there was a massive shift, and so we have to know also that the soldiers are the body and we are the soul, and they feel that. I can just tell you personally for sure that they feel it. I'm sure everybody knows that. Just recently, someone even came out and said, "Listen, in these certain hours, the fighting is extra hard, and we feel like you guys aren't praying enough during this time or learning enough. So these hours, you guys know what I'm talking about? You heard this? Some people say, yeah. So on these hours, you get your act together, double down on those hours. I'll tell you also, just myself, you see it, you feel it. I was last week. What's today? Wednesday, Thursday. Okay, so a week ago, last Wednesday, I was up on the border of Lebanon doing a big meal for the soldiers, right up on the border of Lebanon. And that's what they were sharing. They were sharing that, among other things, right? Among other things, one of the things they were sharing, you could feel that they felt like, yes, they're going out there, but we're right there with them. They're the external manifestation of whatever we're doing internally. And so you have to realize it's a big thing. It's a real thing. And what's going on, in case you haven't noticed, what's going on really feels very, very biblical. And I was talking to someone yesterday in Florida about this. You see, stuff that for the negative and the positive, the painful, we mentioned before, what the way they were able to get in and the manner in which they got in, was beyond seichel, was beyond anything that made sense, right? Then also the stories of salvation that came out are beyond anything that made sense. The light within that darkness was beyond anything that made sense. Think about it. Imagine these guys, they're trained from birth to go on missions of this to do these kind of things, to kill Jews, whatever. And then you have this story, the most famous story, and there's many stories, but the most famous story is, of course, that woman who, when they broke into her house, they had her, she treated them to dinner, right? And they sat down and ate. They sat down and ate for 5 hours or something like that, right? Tell me what sense that makes. These guys, they probably didn't even think they're going to get past the border. They try this stuff all the time. They just get shot way before they get there. You get taken out way before they get to be successful. And these guys, they probably thought they weren't going to make it, to be honest. They probably really thought they weren't going to make it. And then they go ahead, they make it. And they go into someone's house. They've been training for this their whole life. Here, have some meatballs and spaghetti. Maybe it was falafel, whatever it was. Makes no sense. And they sit down and they have, the whole thing, it makes no sense. You know what I mean? You have to see this is something that's totally beyond seichel. Totally beyond anything that's natural. Living in wild times. This is the kind of stuff you read about from Tanakh, and you'd be like, come on, really? Doesn't make any sense, right? Obviously, there's a million other stories. People were handed guns that are, off the shelf, sent down south, go fight, and they're hitting targets all over the place. And then afterwards, they're like, okay, let's properly check the guns, and they start trying to shoot. It's all jammed. Dozens of stories like this. The soldier said after, no, the gun doesn't even work. They threw out the gun that they just went and did. So So we have to see, we have to understand that there's something bigger going on over here. There's something spiritual going on here. This stuff is real, right? Okay, so what's upon me to do? So obviously, everybody in their own way to see, okay, what do I need to improve within myself as an individual? Yes, but then also in the national scale, being a part of the nation, right? This concept of bringing achdut, bringing unity, bringing shalom. Questions, thoughts, ideas, anything we just said? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I guess my question is, one is, where else? You're telling the world exactly what's going on. I guess that the only thing I can think is everyone, is it kind of it's not right now?
Yeah, it's not the time. I mean, they're about to do the same thing again with stuff that we're talking about. They're about to do the same thing again. Let's put the PA over there. Is that different? You know what I mean? Okay.
That's why I think it's actually very urgent for all these people in the 90s.
I hear you. I don't know. This is a political question. I don't have the answer to this question. The point here is achdus. Now you can be achdus and you can say your opinion also. It's not a contradiction. Right? I know someone came out. So a week ago, someone came out. It was like I think it was Rabbi Meir Kahana's yard site or something. Someone came out. I was like, oh, is everybody ready to go there and ask Mechila now to his kever? Now's an opportunity. Like you said, anyone with like IQ. Okay, I don't have any. Just the fact that half the country doesn't agree with you is already a miracle. What do you think? The fact that half the country was ready to give up Gaza, was ready to give up Gush, was ready to. That in itself is miraculous. Don't you think? Because it's beyond seichel, right? That's for sure. There's no seichel involved. Okay, so we have to understand that there's something more than meets the eye that's going on in this whole story, right? So, okay.
And this is what we did the peace process.
Yeah. Well, listen, firstly, to a certain extent, that is happening right now. Meaning to say, there's right now is in Israel, there's no right, there's no left. This is a time for war. That's it. There's no questions. There's no to the point that even when the world is against, you have the Jews on both sides saying the world's out of their minds. Screw them. Can you imagine? It's 2 months ago, half of the country saying, we don't care what the world says. It's not. So, we'll see. We'll see. It was time a long time ago. It was time a long time ago. Okay. We also have to understand. Yeah. Okay, so we have to see. By the way, let me add also that also I'll tell you that people who we shouldn't be so surprised. When we're seeing all these things in the marches and whatever that's going on here. For those of us, at least who have a background, some people are like talking to somebody. For example, I was talking to somebody in Las Vegas, right? And she saw that she was getting some pushback from certain people in her job. I believe non-Jews. And she's like kind of taken aback, like, wow, really? That they think this or whatever? And it's just like, you have to see, people think that like, okay, all this anti-Semitic stuff and these kind of things that we saw in Germany and before that, like that was one reality. But now we have color television, and this is a new reality. It's like, no, it's one history, it's one people, it's the same blood, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. We have to see that because also we have to understand also the context of Jewish history. We know there's a teaching in the Talmud which says that why was the Torah given on Har Sinai? And it's a play on words. It's given on Sinai because from the time the Jewish people get the Torah on Sinai, that's when they become a model of what it means to be sin'ah, to be a hated people, right? Why? Because the Jewish idea is that we're here to be a light unto the world, to be a beacon of light, morality, truth, that there's a God. You can't just do whatever you feel like doing whenever you feel like doing it. So there's a spiritual reality there. There's a spiritual reality there, and therefore there's going to be an aspect of a person, an aspect in the world, even within ourselves, even within each Jew, that has a certain hatred for that, because the lower side of ourselves just wants to do whatever we feel like doing, whenever we feel like doing it. And that's the spiritual thing that's going on with anti-Semitism. We're not where we need to be. That's the real reason that's given for anti-Semitism all throughout the Torah. So we have to understand that, you know, and so people who didn't grow up, Jews that did not grow up with a strong Jewish background, a strong Jewish knowledge in these areas, when they see this stuff happening, they're shocked, right? Like, so for example, there's someone who was a guest by me a long time ago, and so I see that she's like, and she was very, you know, majored in, what's it called? Majored in gender studies and all this stuff. She's like all, you know, with all the causes, you know, with all, whatever the isms are of the time. But now, when she feels like it's our turn now, right? Like, you know, now it's Jewish Lives Matters, believe all the women, all that stuff, right? And she's like, right, and then she looks around, and she's like, hey, where are all you guys? You all abandoned me. And so she's having an identity, you know, crisis, or doesn't understand what's going on, right? A similar thing with a neighbor of mine, a son of a neighbor of mine. I live in Jerusalem, but this guy is not, doesn't appear observant, let's say it like that, right? And he's also a little bit of a hothead, this guy. And so a few days after this thing that happened, I overhear him like yelling, like, why is nobody asking? Like, we need answers. Nobody's asking this in the media. Like, what, you know, whose fault it is and this and that's. Just like, bro, you don't get it. It doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter who they pin on. This was beyond anything that made any sense. We have to see. We have to understand. This is a spiritual thing that's going on here, right? Just like the world doesn't understand that things like at least the Western world, you know, things like political and it's about a state and this and that. No, this is a religious war. This is totally a religious issue. They understand it. We have to understand it. We have to understand, okay, so what do we do with a religious issue? We have to see where we look in within ourselves, where are we religiously off, where are we not where we need to be spiritually, and to mend that issue, right? Questions, thoughts, ideas, my friends? Do a meditation thing or not? You do it or not? You do a meditation thing now? Like, huh? Take a vote. Okay, so a question, my friends. Yeah, go ahead. Well, what do you mean within ourselves? There's two things. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's very simple. If you have when we're having after, it's a national. It sounds like a national thing, but really, how do we have it? Each individual makes a little switch within themselves that my feeling aligned with you isn't about your opinion and my opinion. My feeling aligned with you is that we are brothers and sisters before we have an opinion, right? I am. Think about it again. Take it back to the couple example. right? We are married, we are one unit, I love you. Before we even talk about whatever the issue is that we might have different opinion about. So that's a switch in you, and a switch in me. That's something that so that's you want to call that personal work? I think that's fair. We can call that personal work, right? That's what we need to be. That's what we need to be holding, I think, right? Yep. Right. Right. You have no shortage of sources to quote. So my friends, I want to put an idea out there for you. I know you didn't come prepared for this, and you could feel free to say that you're not in the mood for it. But what's about if anybody wants? There are groups of Jews that are involved now with an ancient practice of doing certain like meditations and really visualizations, and in order to, the idea is that we are souls first and foremost, and that means to say where you're, like the Baal Shem Tov says, your mind is where you are, and so there's a practice by the Nistarim, the hidden tzaddikim, to come together and to like visualize certain things in order to put that energy into the world, in order to make that happen. And so I don't know if people are up for it, but if you want, we can do a little practice here. And so, say again. So the thing is, it's like it is. I guess on the outside it looks like a meditation, but there's two different ways to do it, right? A lot of times when we're involved in a meditation, it's for me, right? It's for me to get to a certain place, which is good. We could even start off with something like that. But ultimately, really what this is about, it's about putting forth. It's about putting forth something. It's about doing something of service, right? It's about going outward as opposed to going inward. So we'll start with getting inward in order to become a little bit more, get outside of our personal trappings. But then the point really is to shift and put something out there in the world. So this is something I did with a couple of groups this week. As well as I'm going to do it on Shabbos with the group. We have time if we want to do it. She's ready to fall asleep. She's gonna love it by anybody else because she's gonna be out. But we got one person who's in. We got two people. We got three. I know you're in. It's okay. She doesn't need to be up. It's okay. To fall asleep is good too, maybe, especially if you have good dreams. Okay, good. We got a few people here. Okay, anyone who's not comfortable with it, so the door's open. No, just kidding. You're welcome to stay. Do whatever you want. But we'll do it together. Okay. Is there a way to dim the lights? That would be awesome. So I have a certain rabbi that also like gets a drum out and starts doing beats and puts on like some music in the back, and we'll keep it simple here. Yeah, awesome. What about this side? You get this side too? All right, here we go. We keep the recording going? Yeah, maybe they want to jump in, right? Okay, you guys at home can join us. Okay, here we go. We ready? Okay. So before we get into it, 8:30. We're okay to go till 8:30. It's fine. Okay. So, oh yeah, obviously turn off all phones, whatever. Okay. So before we get into it, I'll just go through quickly what the process we're going to go through. Okay. First, we want to get to a place first of consciousness, getting to a place of outside of the things we're usually trapped into, right? And so I'm going to ask you 3 questions, one at a time, and ask you to think about what am I thinking? And then what am I emotionally feeling? And then what am I physically feeling? The point of this is to get the things that are usually in the background that we're attached to, get them conscious, get them outside of ourselves, and then hopefully create a separation between me and my feeling, me and my thoughts, me and my physical sensations. And this helps us to get to a place of dat, helps us to get to a place of consciousness. And then once we're in that place, we're going to shift our attention and shift our kavanah to put out there and to envision that our soldiers are safe and protected. I'm going to spend time on that. And then that the captives are whole and safe and return and come home safely and are returned. And then that Gaza and Israel and the world are a place of peace. Okay? So we're going to go through that. We'll start from the beginning. Okay? So firstly, get comfortable. Get comfortable, get relaxed. Close your eyes. And take a few deep breaths. And ask yourself, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? And whatever comes up, allow it to be. And then let go of it. As opposed to sometimes when we go down a rabbit hole of thoughts, allow your thought to be, and just like when you were to look in the sky and see birds flying by, you see it, and then you let it go by. It's the same thing with the thoughts. Comes up, it's okay, it's not good, it's not bad. You acknowledge it, and you let it go. What am I thinking? What am I thinking? מה אני חושב? Okay. I'm going to ask the question, what am I feeling? What am I emotionally feeling? And once again, feeling comes up, acknowledge it, then let it go. Allow it to be, allow it to move on. And if you find yourself being pulled into something, being dragged into a feeling continuously, just pull yourself back, center yourself, and let the feeling go. If you've ever heard anyone say, I'm angry, so a dad joke would be to say, I didn't name you angry. What does that mean? It means that we are not midot. Better than I'm angry would be to say, more accurate would be, I'm feeling angry. You see, when you say I'm feeling angry, already you're separating the you from the feeling. They're two different things. And if you're really spiritually advanced, you'd say, the feeling of anger is coming up from the point is to recognize there's a me, there's a feeling. What am I feeling? Ma ani margish. Allow yourself to feel the feeling, and then to let it fade away. What am I feeling? Okay, when you're ready, I'm gonna ask another question. Ma ani margish bagufani. What am I physically feeling? What am I physically feeling? And for this, we'll do a little bit of a body scan. And there's two types of feelings. There's an external feeling and an internal feeling. External feeling is, for example, I feel pants on my leg. I feel my sleeve on my arm. Internal feeling is the little twitches and pains and itches, those kind of feelings that we have, so to speak, on the inside. So what am I physically feeling? We'll start from the bottom and we'll go to the top. Put your attention on the bottom of your feet. What am I feeling? Move your attention to the lower half of your legs. What am I physically feeling? Moving up to the upper half of your leg. What of your legs? What am I physically feeling? Putting your attention on your stomach. What am I physically feeling? Putting your attention on your back. What am I physically feeling? Moving up to your neck. What am I feeling? Putting your attention on your jaw. What am I feeling? Putting your attention on your face. What am I feeling? Bring your attention on the top of your head. What am I feeling? Now putting your attention on the entire body. What am I physically feeling? Before we shift into putting your attention to those three other categories, first we're going to focus in on something that's on, on, on Hashem, on the idea of Ein Od Milvado, that there's nothing other than God, there's nothing other than the infinite. He is our essence, and He is our context. He is beyond and He is within. And the rabbis teach that this is a big segula for protection. We have that in our consciousness clearly. That Ein Od Milvado. So I invite you, focus in very strongly for yourself, for the world, that Ein Od Milvado. There's nothing other than Hashem. Now I invite you to put your intent on soldiers being safe and protected. And to get all of your senses involved, to see it, what that looks like, to hear what that sounds like, to smell it, to taste it, touch it, experience the atmosphere of it. What would it look like when they come home safe? What would the scenes be like? Make it real. Feel it. Now I invite you to put your attention and have the kavanah of the captives being safe and returned whole. What would that look like? See it, feel it. What are the sounds? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? Touch it. What's the atmosphere? What are the scenes that you would see? That you would see? Make that real for you. Experience that in picture. Now I invite you, put your intent and kavanah onto the idea and the picture of Aza being a place of peace, as well as Israel and the world. Doesn't matter how we get there, whatever that process is for you. What does the end picture look like? What does it feel like? Experience that. Make that real for you. What does it sound like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What's the atmosphere? What are the scenes? Make it real. Concretize it. Now, I'm going to invite you to take all three of those visions and consciousnesses, bring them down to your heart and send them out from your heart, beam them out to the soldiers and to the captives and to Gaza and Israel and the world. Now I'm going to invite you to have your own personal prayer at this time. In your mind and in your heart, to daven, to pray Hashem for whatever you want to pray to Hashem for. invite you to take 2 deep breaths. When you're ready to come back into yourself a little bit. And when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes and to just look around, people around you, and wish them good vibes. Bracha, mazel, hatzlacha. Maybe smile at people. Wish them good things. Look them in the eye. Okay. For now, for 1 minute, I invite you guys. Actually, you know what? Let's just share. Everyone is comfortable with it. Let's go around real quick and just share one word. Just one word to describe either where you're at, how that was for you, how you felt it was for you or for the world or whatever, just whatever comes up for you. Go ahead. Anyone else back there? Want to share anything? No? How about over here? Okay. Got a word? No? Beyond words. Okay, Saturday. Okay, my friends. I thank you for joining. I hope you found it meaningful. And yeah, Baruch Hashem, we're zochet to be included in the groups of the tzaddikim who are involved in these avodas. Anyone who wants to chat for a little bit, we have a few more minutes before we have to run to the next thing. If anyone wants to talk and say hello, now's the time. Thank you. Say again? What's the next thing is? Yeah. Sorry. Live in your way. We should just cut the recording before people start coming over. Try to keep you. You know how to cut it? Shimon. You know how to. Pleasure. Thank you. You know how to turn this off? It's off.